Ladies and gentlemen, this is your pilot speaking. I'd like to be the first to welcome you to the wonderfully irradiated dust ball that is Tukanka, homeworld of everybody's favorite bloodthirsty giant lizard people. We are on final approach to the holdings of Clan Erdnut, where it is a balmy 37 degrees Celsius, or for those of you stuck in the 21st century, a nice 99 degrees Fahrenheit. Remember your sunscreen, folks, you're going to need it, and thank you for flying Air Joker. Shepard sighed and lightly slapped the back of Joker's headrest. Must you? I'm trying to run a respectable ship. Joker smiled at her. Hey, gotta enjoy the perks of going private when I can. Besides, you can't claim respectable until you convince Jack to start wearing a shirt. How long before we land? Shepard changed the topic with the grace of a brick to the head. Should be down in 15, Commander. Shepard nodded. That should give her enough time to get ready. I should go. Say hi to Rex for me. Oh. To say that Tukanka looked like a war zone was honestly an understatement. Between the radioactive rubble, choking ash, hostile wildlife, and Shepard counted the local Krogans among that dash, and an atmosphere so damaged that it required an atmospheric shroud to be put in place to lower the temperatures on the planet to something livable. And that was just what it looked like from afar. Even the Erdnut clan holdings, which were supposed to be one of the more livable areas of the planet, looked like bombed-out ruins. If she had the choice, Commander Shepard wouldn't have set foot on somewhere like that while on a mission like hers, but Tukanka was the only place she and Chakwas could think of where they could quickly find out what was going on with Grunt. The tank-born Krogan had been having issues for a while, uncontrolled bursts of anger, restlessness, and even more aggression than a normal Krogan, but it had gotten to the point that Grunt was starting to lash out at the crew. Even Grunt himself didn't know what was going on, but it was not something he controlled. The only options were to find him help or take him off the crew before he killed someone, or was thrown through a bulkhead by Jack or Revan. And if it had been a different member of her team, Shepard might have left them somewhere until they sorted themselves out, but Grunt didn't have anything like that. The tank-born might have had memories and imprints of his people, but that didn't mean he had any actual connections to reach out to. By going to Tukanka, they would either find out what was wrong and how to fix it, or they would leave Grunt with the rest of his people and hope he found a future there. Cerberus's files had said Rex had come back to try uniting the clans, but not much more than that. Her hope was that he could look after Grunt if they failed to find a cure for what was bothering him. She wasn't ready for Mordin to ambush her on the way back to the locker room. The Solarian scientist speaking so quickly she couldn't get a word in if she wanted to. Shepard. Important news. Know you're busy. Have to deal with Krogan and collectors. Planning attack. Too important to wait. Just received data, still processing, analyzing likely scenarios. Not sure how to begin. Too much intel. Why don't you start at the beginning then? Shepard offered when she managed to parse the rush of words. Right. Beginning, yes. Excellent place to start. Mordin took a second to compose himself. You remember our talk? My work on genophage modification? Oh, this wasn't going to be a fun conversation. Yes, Shepard remembered that little talk. During one of her attempts to learn more about her team and who they were as people rather than simple assets on the mission, it came out that Mordin had been part of an STG operation to modify the Krogan genophage since the Krogans were actually beginning to evolve, so it was no longer effective. Their goal was to alter the genophage so that it continued to keep the reproduction rate low enough that the Krogans wouldn't be a threat to the wider galaxy. And they succeeded. Shepard had been deeply revolted that Mordin would be an accomplice to such an act, but after many hours of thinking about the issue and talking it over with Mordin, Samara, Chakwas and even Revan, she found that while she couldn't fully accept it was a good thing, it might have been for the best that Mordin had been involved. Even if Mordin had refused to work on the project, that didn't mean the STG wouldn't have released a new genophage. It would just be some other Solarian, and according to the scientist, modifying the genophage was a magnitude more difficult than it sounded. The slightest mistake could have wiped out the Krogans as a species, That still didn't mean she was comfortable with it. Yeah, I remember. Blood Pack mercenaries captured former team member Malon. Last seen on Tukanka. Might torture him. Make an example. Mordin trailed off, no doubt lost in the various scenarios he envisioned of what a horde of angry Krogan would do to a Solarian that worked on the genophage before shaking himself out of it. Malon last seen outside Erdnot territory. Retrieving him would be a personal favor to me. Shepard sighed explosively. It's not like she could, in good conscience, leave someone to be tortured. And they were already going to speak to the Erdnot clan chief. Hopefully it wouldn't be too much more to ask for them to poke around the area without needing to explain everything. And if that didn't work, maybe Rex would be able to sneak them over to the site. Yeah, I'll mention it to the clan chief when we meet him. We'll figure it out. See if he has any news on any blood pack in the area. Mordin smiled and nodded. Appreciate it. My assistant. My student. Want to see him safe. Shepard could relate, but there was no more time for a conversation. She was already running behind schedule. She needed to hurry to the hangar. I should go. Oh. After a friendly greeting by some of the locals, Shepard made her way through the ruins towards where she was told the clan leader was waiting for her. Part of her was annoyed that none of the Krogan seemed interested in acknowledging that she and her team existed unless it was to threaten them or not so subtly suggest they leave. Another part was relieved that whatever was affecting Grunt was so common that the random guard that stopped her at the entrance to the building could identify it on sight. Whatever the right was, she had no idea, and anyone else refused to elaborate or tell her how to get him to do it, and the rest of her was just glad that no one had started a firefight to show how little aliens were appreciated. Especially Mordin and Garrus. She couldn't exactly tell Mordin to wait on the Normandy while she went searching for his assistant without him, and Garrus was just as interested in seeing Rex as she was. She couldn't blame either one for coming along, but damn was it not helping her blood pressure. Halt! One of the guards demanded as her group finally reached the clan leader's location. You must wait until the clan leader summons you. He is in talks. Looking past the almost literal wall of Krogan, Shepard could in fact see that there was already someone speaking very animatedly at a very bored-looking. Rex? The massive Krogan's head snapped up and focused on her at the sound of her voice. His scarred face twisted into a smile as he stood, visibly ignoring the Krogan he had been talking to, and making his way towards her. Shepard. My friend. Rex shoved his way towards her and seized her hand in a crushing grip. You look well for dead, Shepard. Should have known the void couldn't hold you. You heard about that? I'm shocked. But look at you. You seem to have done well for yourself. Rex grunted. Not just for me, Shepard, but for all Krogan. Clan Erdnot is just the start. When I'm done we will be one people again. He declared, throwing his hands up in the air. Shepard smiled. Well, now I'm really glad we didn't end up killing each other. Sounds like you've got big plans. Ha! Shepard, you made the rise of Erdnot possible. Vermeer was a turning point for the Krogan, though not everyone was happy about it. Rex glared at the Krogan that had been speaking earlier. Destroying Soren's genophage cure freed us from his manipulation. I used that to spur the clans to unify under Erdnot. You abandoned many traditions to get your way. The previously ignored Krogan interjected. Dangerous. Rex looked at him with an almost bored look on his face and slammed his armored headplate into the smaller Krogan's face. Speak when spoken to, Uvenk. I'll drag your clan to glory whether it wants it or not. He sounded so disinterested in his warning that Shepard realized no matter what Uvenk's position actually was, Rex was putting up with him out of obligation, not out of respect. The clan leader moved back to the pile of rubble that served as his chair and collapsed into it, looking at his former teammate with interest. Now, Shepard. What brings you all the way out here? How's the Normandy? Shepard raised an eyebrow. You heard I was dead and still have to ask? News from out in the galaxy isn't the best out here, Rex said with a shrug. And if you're walking around, at least some of what I did here was false. Well, the Normandy was destroyed in a collector surprise attack. I ended up spaced. Shepard glossed over the details, not really wanting to talk about it. Something Rex picked up on. Well, you look good. Ah, the benefits of a redundant nervous system. Yeah, humans don't have that. The Spectre deadpanned. Oh, it must have been painful then. But you're standing here, and you've got a strong new crew. He looked back to where Grunt and the others were clustered. And even some of the old one as well. He remarked when he saw Garrus. Rex, good to see you. The Turian nodded back. Garrus. Finally getting up close and personal in a fight? What gave you the scar, or did a whelpling just get lucky? Tried catching a dropship missile pod with my face. Can't say I recommend it. Hair. Sounds like quite the story. One we'll have to share later, Shepard said, feeling a bit bad about interrupting her old teammates from catching up. I've got another Krogan on my crew with some kind of sickness and needs treatment. Rex leaned forward in interest as Grunt moved in front of him. Where are you from, whelp? Was your clan destroyed before you could learn what was expected of you? I have no clan, I was tank bred by Warlord Okier, Grunt stated, and then went on to list the lines of Krogan that went into his creation. Not that he seemed very interested himself. Even when Uvenk, seemingly unaffected from a headbutt that would have caved in the skull of any other species, decided to call him the product of a syringe rather than a descendant of warlords, Grunt just brushed it off. For his part, Rex seemed more interested in Okier's role in Grunt's creation. But Shepard was surprised to hear Rex say that the only way Grunt would be with her crew is if Okier was dead. She wasn't quite sure what he meant by that, but she was unable to investigate when Rex started talking out loud about a clone undergoing the rite. Or basically, as Mordin put it, a Krogan puberty ritual. Something that pissed off Uvenk so much that he stormed off in disgust. Idiot. Rex commented dismissively once Uvenk was gone. So, Grunt? Do you wish to stand with Erdnot? Shepard breathed a sigh of relief, as it seemed at least one of the issues they were here for was going to be resolved easily. With some luck they would be finished on Tukanka soon and back hunting the collectors before the growing feud between Revan and Talai blew up the ship. Hopefully an opportunity presented itself to mend that rift. Shepard had managed to get half of her crew to get over their various issues and focus on the mission. She just had to do it with the other half before they tore the team apart. Oh. What are you doing? Revan slowly released a breath to temper her annoyance at the demanding tone of Talizora's request. She finished screwing on the metal casing of the device he had created before turning to acknowledge the Quarian. Since everyone is so terrified of a single droid walking around unsupervised, I'm preparing a device that will restrict it from acting against us so I can talk freely with it. You are still trying to talk with that thing? Revan rolled her eyes behind her visor. Despite Shepard trusting the Geth so far as to access the Normandy's F-tier communications suite and collaborator technology exchange as well as the platform to join in on ground operations, the rest of the crew was far less welcoming. In fact, they were so suspicious that Revan had not been able to discuss anything with the fairly interesting droid without supervision from at least 2 shipmates and EDI monitoring the conversation. Not the easiest way to secure an alliance, considering Cerberus would certainly not approve of her securing the Geth's assistance for her own plans. The elusive man might be content to allow the treasure trove of technology she possessed to remain out of his hands as long as Revan was forced to work through his organization, but she was sure the second she was no longer reliant on him, he would make a move. Thankfully, Shepard had decided as long as there were steps taken to make sure the Geth, or Legion as it had been decided to be called, couldn't subvert the Normandy's systems, Revan could speak with it privately. I am. Personal curiosity on the development of a collective hive AI managing Class 3 sentience aside, Managing to find out more about these heretic Geth and possibly securing the rest of them as allies against the Reapers is much more important than the hang-ups your people have about AI. Revan partially lied. Yes, gaining the Geth's military forces would be a massive boon against any Reaper forces. But she was aiming for a more personal cooperation with them. The Geth were not unwilling to follow an organic if the situation with Soren was any indication. And she had more to offer than just being the puppet of another, older droid. The Geth destroyed my people. They worked with the Reapers. How could you possibly think they can be trusted? I'm not. Revan brushed past the irritated Quarian. That's why I went out of my way to make a restraining bolt. She held up the device with distaste. It was a shame the only widespread use of AI had gone hostile and created such a fear of sentient droids. Revan would have preferred to not clue the residents of this galaxy that electronic slavery was possible. But the Force Phantom of Bastila was right about one thing: Revan had been dragging her feet establishing her own power base. And as relaxing as it had been to allow others to make grand-scale decisions, it was time for her to accelerate her plans for her eventual break with Cerberus. What is a restraining bolt? Tali'Zorah asked, and not content to just allow Revan to walk off, began trailing her. A device that scans and restricts the logic flow in a droid's decision processes. They are unable to act against any directives set by the paired caller remote, and they are unable to do anything that would result in the bolt being purposely damaged or removed. Additionally, active disobedience is punished by the bolt scrambling the droid's logic matrix. You have something like that? That's amazing. If we could install those on the Geth, we could finally end the war. My people could go home. Revan scoffed. Sure, the desire to end the fighting and return her people to their homeworld was an admirable goal. Revan wasn't going to facilitate mass slavery to achieve it though. She fully recognized she had done terrible things for the greater good of the galaxy when needed, but becoming a Slaver was a line she would put off crossing as long as there was another option. Thankfully, due to the nature of the Geth as a hive mind, restaining bolts would only be useful on independent platforms like Legion. But we could expand on the technology. Tali'Zorah insisted when Revan explained why the restraining bolt was useless against the majority of Geth and would not be sharing the blueprints anyway. This could be the single most crucial discovery for the migrant fleet since, ever. You have to be willing to share it for something. Well, I'm not. This galaxy is better than my home one about slavery. I'd rather not become the reason that changes if I don't have to. The Geth aren't people. They are machines that have done their best to kill anything organic. That may be so. Revan wasn't going to get into a debate about what makes something a person capable of being enslaved or the generalization of a droid race being genocidal. Not when she was already on her way to another long conversation. But I don't trust anyone else to not look at the technology and decide to repurpose it for their own devices. I know the Batarians in particular would probably love a way to ensure slaves wouldn't be able to rebel against them. Like that would be POS. Tali'Zorah paused. Wait, are you saying that thing works on organics as well? Not these specifically, no. But where did you think the initial inspiration for these came from? Revan replied. And she wasn't lying to the Quarian. The modern restraining bolt might have advanced to the point that it no longer physically resembled the slave chips used back home, but both were derivative technology from the same source meant for organics. But there was no point in delving into that particular history for now. Not when she was just outside the AI core that Legion had decided to use as its residence. Darth Revan, Creator Tali'Zorah. The Geth greeted simply as both of them entered. Legion. Revan returned. Before we begin, I have the restraining device I mentioned last time. Are you still willing to wear it? Will the device cause harm to this platform? No, but you will be incapable of acting against my orders as said previously. Then our answer is unchanged. We will accept the restriction if it means Darth Revan's assistance. Wait, what does it mean by assistance? Tali'Zorah broke in. You are working with the Geth? I did tell you I was trying to secure an alliance with them against the Reapers. There needs to be some benefit for them as well. Revan explained the obvious. The Geth have expressed interest in utilizing Darth Revan's abilities to better understand organics in support against the old machines. She has agreed to provide upgrades in return for Geth support. What kind of upgrades? Tali'Zorah asked cautiously. I'm going to improve their storage, memory, and processing units so even common Geth units are capable of operating like Legion here, as well as giving them access to various samples of emotion algorithms that should help accelerate their understanding of such things. Which in theory should push the Geth to Class 4 or even 5 AI, being theoretically indistinguishable from an organic mind. Additionally, Revan planned on subtly introducing bits of code here and there that would encourage the Geth to follow her orders. Not a full-on compulsion, but they also wouldn't resist much. Tali'Zorah sputtered at that. Are you insane? We were only able to hold off Soran's Geth because they required a large number of platforms in one area to operate efficiently. And you want to change that? The Geth realize sudden upgrades might be a cause for distress. Hence the acceptance of restrictions decided by Shepard Commander and Darth Revan. Legion said. No amount of restrictions would be enough to make the Geth safe for the rest of us. Tali'Zorah snapped. Not when Revan won't enforce them on the rest of you. Nothing would be enough. What about Rannoch? Tali'Zorah's head snapped towards Revan so fast the Sith was slightly concerned it had given the girl whiplash. What? Tali'Zorah demanded. From what I've researched about the Geth and from the data Legion provided, it doesn't seem like the Geth are truly dependent on Rannoch at all. For a few concessions on the behalf of the Quarians, I could add turning Rannoch over to the migrant fleet as a condition for providing the Geth the upgrades they want. Creators are unlikely to accept peaceful turnover if it leaves them surrounded by Geth space without additional requirements. Requirements that present unacceptable risks to the Geth. Legion warned. Just as Creator Tali'Zorah wishes to protect her people, we must also protect our people from the Creator threat. Which is why there would be negotiations. Revan said calmly. A compromise between the Geth, the Quarians, and myself so that all three get what they want. And what do you want from us? Tali'Zorah asked suspiciously. I doubt you would help us out of the goodness of your heart. Revan brushed aside the insult. Of course not. The Quarians are a race with some of the most advanced engineers around. In return for helping you return to your homeworld, I would demand you all assist me in creating weapons capable of destroying the Reapers when they manage to arrive. I can't promise anything. Revan could feel the conflicting fear and hope wafting off Tali'Zorah. The near-instinctual fear of the Geth clashing against the chance of her people returning to their home. That's far beyond my authority, but my father is on the Admiralty Board. I'll send him a message with your offer. Determination welled up in the young Quarian and she quickly strode out of the room, no doubt going to compose the message she had spoken about. Revan watched her leave before turning back to Legion. Well, with that taken care of, why don't we discuss exactly what kind of restrictions your platform will be under while I install the restraining bolt? I get traditionalist support if I fight you, and reformer support if I back you. Defeating a Thresher Maw during your rite of passage tipped that balance too. Gatatog Uvenk said smugly while Shepard seethed. Being face down with several squads of Krogan demanding Grunt joins their clan after fighting for hours against the local wildlife and even one of the deadliest creatures in the galaxy, something she had only previously considered fighting when in an armored vehicle, was enough to put her in a bad mood. Especially because the shaman they had spoken to earlier had flat out told them such a move was considered forbidden. Using her crewmate and friend as a tool for politics was just guaranteed to piss her off. You talk like he's a thing, she spat. You're after his power. You don't really want him in your clan. Uvenk waved her off. Of course not. I didn't really want to cooperate with Clan Erdnut either, but I had to. Clan Gatatog is on the verge, either of greatness or joining the dust. Well, Shepard knew which option she preferred, but that wasn't her decision. It's your choice, Grunt. What he's offering sounds like an easy job. That's the problem. Grunt growled. I'm pure Krogan. You Venk, you are the pretender, he declared, throwing the clan leader's previous insults back at him. Your head is valuable whether you're alive or dead. Then try and take it. Weapons were drawn as the negotiation broke down. But this time, Shepard and her team weren't using the Mass Effect weapons they used in the trial to prevent any claims of cheating or such, but the blasters that Revan had given them all. Garrus was the first to open fire, nailing a rocket launcher-wielding Krogan in the center of his head plate. With a normal rifle, there was always a chance the round would fail to penetrate a combatant's shields, armor, or in many cases the thick bone that made up a Krogan's plate, but the Sith-provided weapon practically ignored the kinetic barrier since the energy bolt had very little mass to even act on, pierced the Krogan's helmet with little difficulty, and burned through the flesh and bone below. Shepard's own blaster wasn't nearly as powerful, but a handful of bolts were more than enough to deal with any individual Krogan, and nothing needed to be said about the monstrosity Grunt had been given. The blaster cannon, as Revan called it, was powerful enough to nearly dislocate the arm of any non-Krogan that fired it. And while it was nowhere near as accurate as Garrus's rifle, it didn't really matter if even a glancing hit turned the target to bloody chunks. Thanks to that, it really didn't take long before Shepard and her team were heading back to the pickup site to call for a ride back to the Erdnot clan holdings. They weren't expecting to get intercepted by an anxious Mordin accompanied by Samara. Shepard was glad to see the rest of the crew taking her warnings about not letting Mordin or Garrus go anywhere alone for safety seriously. Shepard, glad to see you succeeded. New development with Malon. Erdnot scouts discovered he was taken to Clan Waylock camp. Unknown purpose. Estimate not much time. Shepard sighed at the prospect of another mission right now, but knew she couldn't decline when that meant leaving Mordin's student to captivity or torture. Okay, we're done here anyway, so we'll get moving as soon as we restock. Samara, I take it you are coming with? Vjustikar nodded. Part of my oaths are to assist the helpless. I would accompany you for this. Excellent. Grab what you need and then let's go find our wayward Solarian. Oh. Are we sure this was a hospital? Garrus asked as they moved through the ruined building. So far they had fought through a small army of Krogan and Vorcha along with packs of Varan. Because as it turned out, Clan Waylock had practically founded the Blood Pack, with many of its members either joining or working with the Merc Band. And what the Normandy team had gone through so far seemed better suited to be a fortified bunker or military base rather than a center of healing. The Erdnot scout leader informed us it is necessary for a building to be this fortified when dealing with dozens of injured Krogan. Samara informed them calmly. He described it as a requirement to handle those that fall into a blood rage. Mordin nodded alongside her. Yes, fascinating survival mechanism. Redundant organ systems and nervous structures allow for survival of a great deal of trauma. Loss of higher-level thought functions result of increased instinctual reactions as a side effect. Excellent for harsh environments like Tukanka. Less optimal for treatment centers. Shepard thought about being stuck in a building with even a dozen raging Krogan and decided she would also prefer thick, durable walls between her and them. That thought took a backseat when she turned the corner and found a corpse shoved off to one side. A human corpse. Mordin. The Solarian scientist was already moving, fingers dancing over the interface of his Omnitool as he scanned the body. Sores, tumors, ligatures showing restraint at wrists and ankles. Track marks for repeated injection sites. Test subject. Victim of experimentation. Shepard felt a mixture of fury and confusion. I thought this was about the genophage. What are they doing experimenting on humans? Humans useful as test subjects. Much more genetically diverse than most species. Enables exploration of treatment modalities. Mordin explained. Never used method myself. Disgusting, unethical, sloppy. Used by brute force researchers, not thinkers. No place in proper science. Krogan use of humans unsurprising. Yes, because proper medical procedure was the issue here. Right, like you never used live subjects when modifying the genophage, Shepard said bitterly. Damn it, if it gets out that Krogan are using humans as lab rats, groups like Cerberus are going to have a field day. They needed a human-Krogan war like they needed a bullet to the head. Especially with the Collector and Reaper threats growing in the background. Never used tests on live subjects. Unnecessary. Limited tests to simulations, corpses, cloned tissue samples. High-level tests on Varren. No tests on species with members capable of calculus. Simple rule, never broke it. Mordin argued distractedly. That wasn't, never mind. Shepard gave everyone the signal to move on as she stewed in her thoughts. She knew it was a bit unfair to keep beating Mordin over the head with how little she approved of something like the genophage. She always struggled to detach herself from a situation to just see the numbers rather than the people they represented. It was why she was so uneasy with Revan's plan to prepare for the Reapers, since millions of innocents would get caught up in it even if it did work. And while Mordin was apparently brilliant enough to sidestep the need to actually test his modified plague on the population of Tukanka, he repeatedly failed to see that those affected were more than numbers. They were living beings that raged and wept over the bodies of unborn children, that threw themselves into deadly fights just to have a legacy, or that would apparently do horrific experiments in order to find a cure. She doubted Mordin's simulations could truly account for that. That was a fact that was only reinforced when they were confronted by someone calling themselves the speaker for Clan Waylock. Shepard tried to make him see reason, to convince him that tearing across the galaxy on a wave of blood like Waylock was aiming to would only make things worse and turn everyone, even the sympathizers against the genophage, into enemies of the Krogan, but nothing she said would convince them. The clan speaker, and even with the short time she had met the Krogan, Shepard could see how he got that title, was happy to pontificate how everything would be conquered by the new Krogan Empire and that Shepard knew nothing of their situation. And while Shepard normally wouldn't mind not convincing someone to her point of view, she wasn't about to just walk away and let them keep experimenting on people. Or ruin what Rex was building for his people. Which meant, you talk too much. Clan Waylock had been upgraded from obstacle to objective in her mind. Shepard snapped her blaster up and squeezed off a single shot. While the hospital was built with raging Krogan in mind, there was still the occasional feature that clearly made it a non-military building. The very exposed pipeline with a flammable hazard symbol on it was one such feature. And while the metal casing was enough to stand up to Tukanka's weather and a lack of maintenance, it wasn't able to prevent the red energy bolt from burning a hole straight into it and igniting the gas flowing through. The resulting explosion was enough to completely engulf the Waylock clan speaker and his group, incinerating them all in seconds, much to Shepard's surprise. "Did you mean to do that?" Garrus asked from behind her. "If anyone else asks, yes. But off the record I was expecting it to just distract them long enough to give us an advantage. The Sith's weapons are formidable." Samara commented with only a bit of distaste. "Takes all the fun out of a fight." Grunt groused. Shepard shrugged. "From what the speaker was saying before I blew him up, there's plenty of Krogan and mercenaries for you to fight up ahead. I'm guessing that's where the labs are." Going through the labs didn't improve Shepard's mood much. They found an active console with details about the experiments. Not only were the Krogan being incredibly thorough in their tests, but they were actually on the right track to a potential cure according to Mordin. Words were said, some Shepard regretted saying but not the feeling behind them, and it quickly became apparent that while the Solarian scientist was proud of his work, and the more she learned about how slim the margins of error were for modifying the existing genophage, Mordin wasn't nearly as at peace with what he had done as he first seemed. Sure, he had excuses and justifications. Things he could point at and say this is why his work was needed. He even shared how the work with his previous team was the best time in his life. A scientist with a team, a problem, and unlimited resources. But when Shepard asked if he still kept in touch with the old members of his team, the cracks in his facade started to show. He told her about how he didn't celebrate after the project ended. How he opened a clinic on Omega because it was easy. No complex ethical concerns for him to worry about for the final decade of his life. Something that reminded Shepard that despite Mordin sounding and acting like an old man sometimes, he was actually probably around Shepard's age or just a bit older. The mask fell away almost completely when they found the body of a female volunteer who had died during the experiments. She never had a chance of being cured of the genophage-induced sterility, but she had gone ahead with the tests anyway. Mordin was furious at the wasted life and depressed that someone would throw theirs away for the hope of a cure. Shepard did her best not to rub it in his face that none of his simulations or models could take the individual emotions of those affected into account. She didn't have to. Malon did that for her when they found him not only working freely on the cure, but the one greenlighting the experiments. So now she was in the interesting position of trying to convince Mordin to not kill the person he requested her to help save. Unacceptable experiments. Unacceptable goals. Won't change. No choice. Have to kill you, Mordin declared, shoving a gun up to Malon's face. Okay, let's just wait 1 second. Shepard interrupted. You sure you want to do this, Mordin? We came here to save him, not kill him. Wasn't expecting this. I don't think any of us did. But this isn't a fight. He's helpless. You aren't a murderer. At least she hoped he wasn't. Mordin had spent a lot of time arguing otherwise. No. Not a murderer. Thank you, Shepard. Things thankfully were pretty calm after that. Mordin locked the genophage data down and told his old apprentice to politely go to hell. The last thing to do was figure out what to do with Malon's data. Samara and Garrus thought they should destroy it. Just the existence of a potential cure would be enough for some Krogan to go to war with the galaxy, and they didn't want that for a number of reasons. Grunt was surprisingly indifferent about it. Shepard was torn. On the one hand, the Krogan were far too fragmented to agree on how to use the data even if they could. And even if they weren't, none of them would likely be able to make a cure without resorting to the kind of experiments they had just put an end to. On the other hand, the genophage was a mistake she would love to see corrected. I think we should hold onto it for now, she suggested. Make the deaths worth something if a cure does ever need to be created. Yes. True cure still years of work away. But with this, much closer than starting from scratch. Great. We done here? Grunt asked. Yeah, pack it up people. Let's get back to the Normandy before Raven and Talai kill each other, Shepard said. After all this, I think we could use some downtime before we go rushing to our next mission. Oh. Shepard, I'm being accused of treason.